Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in for another Simple Truth update. Does it really surprise you, ladies and gentlemen, that in the country that we live in today, that big business and corporations get more respect than the actual people who live in this country? Well, the story I want to bring to you today will not surprise you if you believe what I just shared with you. The big telecom giant, Verizon, is fighting against net neutrality, which simply means, in a nutshell, the ability to be able to have equal flow of information and people being able to have access to that information, paying their monthly costs to be able to have the internet. However, Verizon is arguing against net neutrality because of the simple fact that it will affect their bottom line. They will not be able to be the gatekeeper to be able to decide what internet access you have, the different speeds and what different websites and things of that nature that you would be able to visit. Well, and on top of that, what makes it really, really facetious, very crazy almost, is the fact that the company itself is appealing a suit that they put in, and a few weeks ago they put in an appeal, and part of their appeal was that the FCC, through the ruling that they had a few weeks ago on net neutrality, is violating